Okay, so we're up to Siman Mem Ches. We're going to do two Simonim today, two interesting Simonim. The first one is the saying the Korban Tamid. Says the Mechaber, Oimrim Parshas HaTamid. Oimrim Parshas HaTamid. We say the Korban Tamid, the Vaydaber for the Korban Tamid every morning. V'yesh Oimrim Seidam HaMarocha V'Riboin Ha'olam Atot Tzivisonu. That's what we say. V'im ef shel omroi. And if this is actually not the Mechaber speaking, this is the Ramah speaking. The ef shel omro, and if it's impossible to say it, but tzibur yachol omro bebeisei, you can say it in your house. V'lachzer parshas hatamid levad im tzibur, and we go back and we say the parshas hatamid with the tzibur. Siman mem ches. V'yechaven b'pam hashniya k'ker b'Torah, and then when you say it again the second time, you have in mind that it's like learning Torah. There are people who are makbid to shokl. Here we go. This is the source for shokling. When we read the Torah, why? Dugmas haTorah shenin bereses. Just like the Torah was given with trembling and with awe, well, so too we also do the same, and therefore we sort of shake when we hear the Torah. And so too when we daven, there are people who have the minhag to shake, to shokl, al shem, because it says al kol atzmoisai toimarno Hashem yikamecha. Kol atzmoisai, all my bones are praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is one of the sources to shokl during davening. All my bones are shaking. B'Shabbos oimrim etz parshas hatamid psukim musaf Shabbos. In addition to saying the Korban Tamid on Shabbos, we also say the psukim for musaf Shabbos of Yom HaShabbos, etc. Avlo b'Rosh Chodesh v'Yontiv, but not on Rosh Chodesh and Yontiv. They shekarim b'Torah psukim musaf, because we lay in those psukim, and therefore it's not necessary for the person as an individual to say it. However, says the Ramah, v'yesh oimrim shemazkirin gam musaf Rosh Chodesh. We do it. V'chein nagin kedei lefarsim shur Rosh Chodesh v'chein hu lekamon sim tov chaf aleph. And therefore, to say b'yom Rosh Chodesh and that whole parsha, to say it as well privately on Rosh Chodesh, while it says the Ramah, we should do that. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Cotton Aleph, HaTamid. By saying the Korban Tamid, the Parsha of Tamid, that is as in lieu of actually being makriv of the Korban Tamid. Shekain Kiblu Chazal, because Chazal have told us they've received the tradition Shebizman she'em Beis Hamikdash Chaim ve'en yochein lahakriv karbonos. When there is no Beis Hamikdash and we can't be makriv karbonos, Misha Isik Bohenu Parsha Sehen Male Olav Hakosav Kilu Hikrivum. It's amazing. If even though we haven't got a Beis Hamikdash and we can't offer up karbonos, by saying the parsha, it's as if we're actually being makriv them. And therefore we say as well the Seidah HaMa'arocha. Venerally, Poshet, and it seems obvious to me, says the Chavetz Chaim, someone who's able to learn the full understanding of this memra, and so too with the Keteres, he understands what he's saying, and then it will count for him as if he's being maktir. You're understanding the parsha of the Oila, whatever it is. You're not just lip service, you're not just saying the words, but you're understanding it. When you say that the parsha of Tamid of the Karbonos, you should do it standing up. Dugmas ha-karbonos shahi ba'amida, because when a person is serving in the Beis Hamikdash or being offering up the karbonos, you also need to stand. Interesting. They argue, and they say no, you can sit down of a prima godim. Okay, but at least for the Parshas Tamid, for that one, you should stand because you do it b'tzibur b'koram. I think in those days, and I think if you go to monks nowadays, before Shacharis and before Mincha, someone stands up at the bim. I don't know if you've seen it. I've seen it, where someone stands up and just reads the Korban Tamid. Have you seen it? Yeah, in monks they do it. I don't know. I haven't seen any other shuls that do it, but it could be that's what he's referring to. That practice. Shekarim b'tzibur b'koram. The Gamma Shekosov b'be'er Heitzev kashem b'shem derech chachma sheizoylem parshas hatamid b'tzibur mashadz. That you should say it with the Baal Tefillah b'tzibur, with the Shliach Tzibur. I'm b'shari tshuvas shehisig al zeh. Kosov prima godim. Mashekosov b'sidurim b'nusach hayihirotzain. after you say the Korbanos, there's the Hirosan, Ki'ilu hikravnu Korban haTamid. That's the Lashon. V'yesh garsin hikravti. And Eina Nocha, but that's not correct, says the Chavetz Chaim. Ki hikravti b'parshas chatzos abaylim koi, because the hikravti goes on the chatzos, which is the individual bringing that Korban chatzos. Masha'en came b'tomid en yochid mikri baylim. On the Korban tomid, this is a communal offering. This is not an individual offering, and therefore saying hikravti is inappropriate. Or b'tur hagirsa, and the Torah has a different girsa. Ki'ilu karav hatomid b'moyadoi v'zeh nochen. That's a very good phrase. Or v'sh'ari tshuva muyushav gam ha'girsa shalonu. He explains our girsa. Okay, but tzibur. Sif Kotzen Beis, says the Mishnah Berurah, Shedarkim ba'isem okum lo merak parshas hatomid levad b'tzibur. Their minhag was only to say the Korban Tamid and not more. V'lachazar, says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotzen and Gimel, shemin hagam hoya mikedem lo ma hakol biyachad b'kol ram. The minhag was back in the day that you would say these together, like the Sephardi shuls do now. They sort of recite it in unison. V'imkein lo yochel lishtog be'is shemra tzibur, and therefore it's inappropriate to be silent when the whole tzibur are doing it. Minker milsa, because it's very recognizable that you're not doing it. Therefore, have in mind, if you've already said it, that you're doing it al slimut Torah, not to be quiet, but you should do it, but just doing al slimut Torah. But he said it's ravcha de milsa. It's just like a nice extra bonus thing to do. That otherwise it may look like you're offering up shnei tamidim, because you said it already. So it's said a second time, it could be like you're offering shnei tamidim. Okay, b'shashem ispalalim, v'yesh poiskim shecholkin al zeh v'oimrim the tefillah ein lehisnanea. That a person shouldn't shackle in davening. So to shackle or not to shackle, what does one do? Says v'rag b'psukei dezimra birkas krishma v'limud haTorah afilu shabpeh hamidag l'seh. Only in certain points, psukei dezimra, the brachas of krishma, limud haTorah, when you're learning maybe to shackle. That's the minhag. Everyone does their own thing. Whatever you do is appropriate. Whatever is good for you, whatever works for you. If you it helps your kavana by shackling, then shackle. And if not, just stand straight. The ikar is you should have kavana. So if it's enhanced by shackling, then shackle is nisht. Some people, they do a very strange type of shackling. The guf, the body stands still. Your head, just the head moves sometimes to the right, sometimes to the left. Derech gaiva, that seems like an arrogant way of doing it. And ein la'asos kain. One shouldn't do that. Okay, shouldn't look strange if it's derech gaiva or if it disturbs other people. There's a ma'aseh with Ramosha Feinstein that Ramosha used to daven absolutely still. Shemona Esrei, he was ramrod straight, didn't move at all. And they asked him why, how come? And he said, because when he was in Luban, he was in Russia, one time he was summoned to the governor, whoever it was, and he said he was petrified. Because in those days you could be sent to Siberia and the repercussions potentially were huge. And he was so nervous he couldn't move. And then he thought to himself afterwards, and Baruch Hashem had a happy ending, but he thought to himself afterwards, when I'm standing Lifnei Melech Malchem Lochim, I should also stand there with the same aim of a yira, and therefore it's inappropriate to shackle, and he would stand. But again, like the Mishnah Berurah says, whatever enhances our tefillah is appropriate. Okay, Kedei Lafarsem, this is going on Shabbos. This is going on the Ramah, who says that we do read the parsha of Rosh Chodesh to be mefarsim that it's Rosh Chodesh. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Avol Yontov ain't strichen lefarsim. But we don't need to read the parsha of Yontov. Shekvahu mefursim me'esmal. We all know it's Yontov. It was last night we davened Yontov davening. Avol Shabbos afa pisha mefursim. Even though Shabbos again same svara, it was also mefursim. It's well known that it's Shabbos. Omrim oisa b'shachris. We still say it on Shabbos morning. Shar ein yochel nekrosa b'terim pnei she'ein bo elish shnei psukim k'moshi yitzvah b'sim reish pegimel. We don't lane of Yom HaShabbos every Shabbos, but we do lane Rosh Chodesh and Yontov. So therefore that would be the difference, and therefore it's appropriate to say it on Shabbos. Okay, Siman Mem Tes. Sheyachol lema krishma bal peh u'beisif echot. Saying davening bal peh without doing it from a siddur. There is a halachic problem with doing that, as we'll see. Afagav the Kaimelon, says the Mechaber, even though we are of the opinion, things which are written, psukim and things from the Torah, you're not allowed to say them bal peh, Kol dova sherogel v'shogel b'fi hakol, things which are rogel and shogel b'fi hakol, things which are very familiar to us, going Kriya Shema, Birchas Kohanim, Pashas Tamid, v'chiyotze bohen, mutter, those things you can say. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah. Dvarim shebichsav. Now, what about a blind person? Rahman is not a blind person who can't read from a sefer. What does he do? Says the Mishnah Berurah in Sivkot Nalef, mutter likres bal peh. He's allowed to. Mishum eis lasis lashem hefer Torah secha. He's got no choice. V'hu adin im hu v'veisu asurim ve'in yochel lahasigim shom chumash. If he can't read a chumash, he's able to say it bal peh. Iato kosav advas chelik alef simin kuf lamet hei likres a parsha bal peh b'shas shashatz koire ani nisa. He's particular to avoid saying it when the Baal Tefillah is doing it. He says, I don't stop other people from doing it. There are those who have the opinion the only problem of saying words which which only if you're for those words where you're being moitzi other people. Okay, someone who's speaking in public, and he's quoting lots of psukim, and it's very difficult for him to go and get a chumash each time when he's wanting to quote a pasuk. Maybe it's appropriate for him to just say the psukim without reading it from the chumash. Ayin b'yuma daf ayin amud aleph daf ayin b'teisus yishonim dibah hamaschel uva osar b'tiris rishon b'tiris basra b'biyah hagro hiskim l'dina tiris basra. Okay, v'shogur. But it says the Machaba that it's okay if it's very familiar to you. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot and Dalet. Avlim eina shogur b'fi hakol. If it's not so familiar to us, even though it's shogur in your fiv, it's osa. And he gives an example. We're going Kriya Shema, Sivkot and Hey, v'chein Pesukei de Zimra. And therefore, if it's Pesukei de Zimra is very familiar to us, then it would be okay to say that. That's interesting. I guess in those days, I guess even nowadays there are some people, but not everyone. Pashas Tamid, Kosav Magen Avraham. Hamayim bebeis Yosef Yirish yesh des shenes betam heta amiris elu dvarim bal peh. There is a heta to say elu dvarim bal peh. Lochein yesh lizoy shelo ilem shum dvar peh. One should avoid saying anything bal peh. Ki mashenizka poi b'shulchan aruch, unless it says those things that are listed here in the Shulchan Aruch. B'shuvas chavas yoy matzil leima kol sefer tehillim bal peh. He allows you to say sefer tehillim bal peh. To kivin shula oiri rach me Hashem havalei ketfila. It's got a din of tefillah and it's not being moitzi anything. But nearly sheyesh mismechalov the belav hochi das hateres zakenim v'agro ba'poskim the dafka lohinzi rabim v'deichivos nasa. The whole prohibition according to the Gra and the hateres zakenim is only if you're being moitzi somebody else in something. But stam is saying to him you're not being moitzi anyone, and therefore you can rely on the Gra to do it bal peh. Mutter of a moitzi acherim ba'amirosa and saksuvim b'tzadid hamogen Avram lahach mishlelim bal peh. Okay, beseder. All right, the ikar is to have kavana, whether you shackle, don't shackle, etc. The ikar is kavana. Beseder.